Part 2. The man I was running from. The road signs changed first. That was what my body noticed before my mind did. Not the silence inside the car. Not the way Reuben had gone still beside me after a night that should have made everything feel simpler. Not the fact that we had driven past the turn for Maria's apartment 10 minutes ago. The signs. Blue. White lettering. Arrows. Airport. At first I told myself I was overreacting. Barcelona had too many roads that curved into each other. Too many routes that looked wrong until they suddenly made sense again. I had only been in the city a few weeks. It was possible I didn't know where we were. Then we passed another sign. Terminal Privada. Private terminal. Every shallow breath I had taken since getting into the car seemed to stop at once. I looked at the road ahead, then at Reuben's profile. He was driving with one hand on the wheel, relaxed, composed, his jaw clean in the morning light. The same face I had woken up beside less than an hour ago. The same mouth that had kissed me slowly while telling me breakfast was getting cold. The same eyes that had looked at me across a terrace and asked whether I had felt safe with him. Now he looked like a man on his way to a meeting. No tension, no hesitation. No sign that anything about this was strange. "Why are we going this way?" I asked. He didn't answer. I waited. Outside the window, the city thinned. Fewer pedestrians. Fewer cafes. More fences. More concrete. Wider roads built for people who didn't linger. I turned toward him more fully. Reuben. His thumb moved once over the steering wheel. Still nothing. My pulse kicked harder. "You said you were taking me back." "I am. That isn't the way to Maria's." "I know." 2 words. Flat. Certain. A cold line moved through my stomach. I stared at him. He kept his eyes on the road. "Where are we going?" This time he answered. "To the airport." For half a second the words didn't land. They hung there, disconnected from meaning. Then they did. My hand went to the door handle. Locked. Of course it was locked. I yanked it anyway. Nothing. "Open the door." "No." I looked at him sharply. "What?" His expression didn't change. "You're not getting out." The air in the car changed. It was still the same leather seats, the same low scent of his cologne and clean soap and expensive upholstery, the same sunlight sliding across the dashboard. But none of it felt the same now. It felt smaller, sealed, designed. "Stop the car." He changed lanes smoothly. "No." My voice rose before I could stop it. "Stop the car." His tone did not. "Lower your voice." I laughed once. It came out brittle. "You think this is the part where I calm down?" "You should." "Why?" "Because panic makes you sloppy." The words hit me so hard I almost missed the exit we took. Private access, restricted entry, a gate already opening. I looked at him, really looked at him, and something I had refused to name for 24 hours began assembling itself inside my chest. The nightclub, the beach, the timing, the way he had appeared beside me in the water before I had even yelled for help, the way he had known exactly how to talk to me, exactly where not to push, exactly how much silence to leave between his words. None of it had been accidental. I felt the truth before I could think it all the way through, and the feeling was worse than fear. It was humiliation. "You knew," I said quietly. He pulled into the lot without looking at me. "You knew who I was." No answer. The gate closed behind us. A sleek white jet sat on the tarmac beyond the glass, waiting in perfect stillness under the morning sun. My throat tightened. Reuben. He parked the car and turned off the engine. Silence filled the space so completely I could hear my own pulse. Then he turned to me, and the calm in his face was the worst thing I had ever seen. Because it was not the calm of a liar improvising. It was the calm of a man who no longer needed to hide anything. "Yes," he said. I stared at him. Everything in me felt both frozen and too fast. "What do you mean, yes?" "I knew who you were." The words landed one by one. No softening, no apology. Just fact. My chest tightened so sharply it hurt. For how long? His gaze did not move from mine. Before the club. It felt like the air left the car all at once. Before the club, before the beach, before dinner, before his hand at my waist, before the terrace, before waking up in his bed feeling, for one sickening hour, like maybe the world had finally given me something that wasn't poisoned. I leaned back against the seat and looked at him like I was seeing an entirely different man. Maybe I was. The Reuben I had met in Barcelona had felt dangerous in a way that had drawn me closer. This man felt dangerous in a way that made every nerve in my body brace. "You lied to me." "No." The answer came immediately, clear, absolute. I almost laughed again. "You gave me a fake name." "It's not fake." That's not the point. It is to me. His voice stayed low, controlled, no edge, which somehow made it worse. I shook my head. My God. I closed my eyes for half a second and saw everything differently. Him across the nightclub, him beside me in the water, him touching my wrist on the boat and stopping me from taking the ointment from his hand, him saying he wasn't afraid of anyone when I told him my father was dangerous. At the time, it had sounded like confidence. Now it sounded like information. I opened my eyes. Who are you? He held my gaze for another moment. Then he said it. Reuben Leonardo Castelli. The name cut straight through me. Not because I had never heard it. Because I had. In my father's office. At dinners he thought I wasn't listening to. On late-night phone calls muffled through walls. Castelli. Of course. Of course. The old New York family. The ones who had been circling my father's business for years. Sometimes beside it. Sometimes against it. Never far from it. The family name attached to whispers, influence, and a kind of money that had outlived scandal because it had helped build the city that produced it. And Leonardo, the son, the man my father had tried to keep vague, the one detail he refused to give me whenever I demanded to know exactly who he thought he was promising me to. I turned toward the window because looking at Reuben, Leonardo, whatever he called himself now, felt impossible. You're the man. Yes. The words were so quiet, so certain. My hands started shaking. I curled them into fists to stop it. You're the one he made the deal with. Yes. I looked back at him. You knew I was running from you. Yes. I hated the sound that came out of me then. Small, broken, disbelieving, because there it was, the shape of it. He had known from the first second exactly what I was to him. A target, a task, a woman already assigned to his life on paper before she ever stepped into it in person. And still he had looked at me the way he did at the club. Still he had pulled me from the water. Still he had listened to me in bed, talk about wanting peace and love and somewhere that felt like mine. Still he had held me while I slept. Every warm thing inside the memory went cold. You used me. His jaw shifted once. Not enough to be obvious. Enough for me to see it. No, I laughed in his face. Don't insult me. I didn't use you. You watched me, lied to me, brought me into your house, got me to trust you. I got to know you. The interruption was quiet, but it stopped me. I stared at him. His eyes were darker than I remembered them being the night before. Or maybe I had just looked at them differently then. If I had wanted to use you, he said, you wouldn't be sitting here asking questions. The statement was so cold in its honesty that it stunned me into silence. He leaned back slightly in his seat, still not raising his voice, still not reaching for me. I could have had you on a plane to New York 2 days ago, he said, without the club, without the beach, without any of the rest of it. The humiliation in my chest sharpened. That is not better. I know. Then why say it? Because you should understand the difference. I shook my head. There is no difference. There is. He looked at me with that same unnerving patience. The difference is that by the time I bring you back, I know exactly who you are. I stared at him. The nerve of him. The calm. The sheer arrogance of saying something like that as if it could mean anything to me now. As if that helps, I said. It does to me. The words came out before I could stop them. Did my father send you? For the first time, something in his face actually changed. Not much. A flattening. A dimming of expression. No. He knows you're doing this. Yes. The answer hit hard. So this was all coordinated. No. The second answer came just as fast. I turned toward him sharply. Oh, so now there are boundaries? Yes. The control in his voice hadn't slipped, but there was something harder underneath it now. Something final. Your father made an arrangement, he said. That doesn't mean he dictates how I handle my life. I almost spat the words back at him. Your life? His eyes locked on mine. Yes. A beat. Then quieter. And you are very much part of it now. Revulsion and heat hit me at once. I reached for the handle again just to do something with my hands. Still locked. Open the door. No. I turned toward him fully. Are you kidnapping me? The question sat between us. Clean. Ugly. Simple. His gaze did not move. I wouldn't use that word. Of course you wouldn't. I'm taking you where you were always going to end up. The sentence was so outrageous I almost lost the ability to speak. You don't own my future. No, he said. But I'm done pretending I'm not in it. I stared at him. Then the anger came back sharp enough to steady me. Listen carefully, I said. Whatever happened between us in Barcelona is over. Finished. Dead. You lied to me from the first minute. You watched me like I was something to be retrieved. You put me in your bed under a false name. You do not get to take anything else from me." For the first time, he looked away. Only for a second. His hand moved to the door handle. My side. A quiet mechanical click sounded in the car. Unlocked. For a heartbeat, I just stared. Then I reached for it. Fast. My hand closed around the handle. And froze. Because outside the window, I had a full view now of the tarmac and the private entry lane beyond it. 2 men in dark suits stood near the gate. Another by the stairs of the jet. Not crowding the car. Not posturing. Just there. Waiting. I looked back at him. He was watching me. Not smug. Not amused. Just letting me see the field clearly. "You can run," he said quietly. "You'll make it about 20 feet. I hated that I believed him. I hated that part of me also believed he wasn't threatening me for pleasure. He was simply stating a fact. I let go of the handle slowly. He opened his own door, stepped out, came around the front of the car. When he opened mine, the morning heat spilled in. "Get out, Stephanie." I wanted to refuse, just to refuse. To make this ugly. To scratch some mark into the smooth, infuriating control of his face. But I also knew exactly how refusal would end. With hands, with spectacle, with less dignity than I still had. So I stepped out on my own. The second my heels hit the pavement, he moved closer, not touching, but near enough that I felt contained all the same. "Don't," I said sharply, before he could put a hand at my back. His gaze flicked to my face. Then, after a beat, he lowered his hand. It should not have mattered, but the fact that he listened made everything worse, because it suggested a kind of restraint where I wanted something easier to hate. He gestured toward the terminal entrance. We walked, not side by side, not exactly. He kept a half step behind me, the way a man does when he is making sure you continue forward without having to physically guide you. Inside, the terminal was silent in the luxurious way expensive places often are. Marble floors, soft lighting, glass. A woman behind the desk looked up, smiled professionally, then let the smile falter when she saw my face. Good. I wanted my face to look wrong. I wanted everyone who saw us to feel, even dimly, that something was happening here that should not be happening. But no one stopped us. Of course they didn't. Men like Reuben did not move through the world expecting to be interrupted, and the world had trained itself accordingly. We crossed the private lounge and stepped out onto the tarmac. Wind hit my hair. The jet sat 10 yards away, white and polished and obscene in its certainty. I stopped walking. Reuben stopped too. I turned to him. "This is your last chance." His eyes narrowed slightly. "To do what?" "To let me go before I decide I hate you in a way neither of us can undo." For the first time all morning, he actually smiled. Small. Not amused. Not kind. Something darker than either. "I think," he said quietly, "you're already there." I looked at the stairs to the jet, then back at him. "Tell me something true." He waited. "Just one thing. Because right now, I don't know if anything you said in Barcelona was real." His expression changed again. Subtle, but real. He looked at me for a long second that felt entirely separate from the terminal, the plane, the guards, everything. Then, "I did not lie when I said I wanted you with me." The words hit somewhere low and brutal. I hated myself for feeling that they were true. I hated him more for making truth and manipulation feel impossible to separate. "You should have just left me in the water," I said. His jaw tightened. "Only slightly. Don't say things you don't mean." I laughed once, breathless and ugly. "You don't get to tell me what I mean." He held my gaze. "No," he said, "but I'm getting very good at knowing." I could have slapped him then. I wanted to. Not because it would change anything, because I needed to break the composure in his face, to prove he was not untouchable. But I didn't, and he knew I wouldn't. That knowledge sat between us two. A flight attendant appeared at the top of the stairs. "Mr. Castelli, we're ready for departure." He did not look away from me. "Good." Then to me, "Walk." I stood there another 2 beats, just to make him wait, just to prove I could still resist somewhere. Then I went up the stairs. The cabin smelled like polished wood, leather, and recycled air cooled to perfection. Soft cream seats. A long divan, muted lighting, a bedroom toward the rear, a table already set with crystal water glasses and folded linen napkins as if this were a normal morning and not a forced return to the life I had fled. I dropped into the farthest single seat I could find and buckled myself in. Not because I cared about safety, because I wanted a barrier, a belt, a line. Reuben sat near the front. He didn't try to sit beside me. The cabin door closed. The engine started. My entire body felt hollow. I stared out the window as the jet began to move. Barcelona slid past in fragments. Runway, terminal, heat shimmer, distant coastline. I thought of the terrace at his villa, the way the sea had looked that morning, the way I had stood there in borrowed peace, believing for one reckless hour that maybe I had finally found the edge of my father's reach. Then the jet turned, accelerated, lifted. The city dropped beneath us, and I watched it disappear without blinking. A flight attendant approached 15 minutes later. "Ms. Gambetta, would you like coffee, tea, sparkling water?" I looked up slowly. The fact that she knew my last name landed like another small cut. "Tequila." She hesitated, then glanced toward the front of the cabin. Reuben had heard. Of course he had. He turned his head slightly. Their eyes met. Then he looked back at his phone. "Bring it," he said. The attendant did. I took the first shot without tasting it, the second slower. By the third, the sharp line of my anger had softened into something more dangerous. Distance. Distance I could survive in. Distance was familiar. Distance had kept me alive in New York long before I ever physically left it. The attendant came back with the bottle, and I reached for it directly this time. A hand closed over my wrist before I could touch it. Warm, dry, certain. I looked up. Reuben stood beside me. "When I said bring it," he said quietly, "I meant the shots, not the bottle." I jerked my hand back. "Don't touch me." His eyes flicked to the glass in my other hand. "3 is enough." I laughed softly. "You don't get to decide that either." "No?" He took the glass from my fingers before I tightened them enough to spill it. I stared up at him. He set it down on the tray table, then looked back at me. "Get drunk if you want, but don't get stupid." Something inside me snapped. "Stupid?" I repeated. That's rich coming from the man who thought deception counted as romance. The words landed. I saw them land. His face did not change much, but something in his shoulders did. A minute shift, weight settling. "Do you want honesty now?" he asked. I said nothing. He bent slightly, one hand braced on the seat across from me, not boxing me in, just forcing me to look at him. "You were never not coming back to New York," he said. The sentence was so cold I almost stopped breathing. "Your father would have found you. Sooner, not later. Men like him don't let daughters vanish into Europe and call it a lesson learned. He would have taken you back one way or another." I held his gaze. "And you think that makes this better?" "No." A beat. "I think it makes it real." He straightened, picked up the glass, walked away with it. I wanted to hate him simply, completely. It would have been easier. Instead, I sat there with my pulse still racing and the unbearable knowledge that the worst thing he had said to me all day might also be true. Hours passed in uneven silence. At some point, I moved to the bedroom at the rear of the jet because the main cabin felt too exposed. The bed was made too neatly, the blankets too soft, the room too beautifully arranged for captivity. I lay down fully dressed, closed my eyes, did not sleep. My thoughts moved in circles. The club, the beach, the villa, his hands on my face, his mouth at my ear that morning, saying he wasn't letting me go. At the time, I had heard possessiveness in it, desire, maybe even the edge of something romantic. Now I heard strategy, but there were pieces that did not fit. The way he had stopped the night before when I had wanted more, the way he had listened when I spoke about wanting a life that felt like mine, the way his face had shifted when I told him he should have left me in the water. Those things had not felt fake. That was the part I could not stand. If he had been entirely cold, entirely false, entirely one thing, I would have known where to put him inside myself. Instead, he had become 2 men in my mind. Reuben, who had looked at me like I was the only thing in a crowded room worth seeing. Leonardo Castelli, who had orchestrated my return across an ocean as if my will were an inconvenient detail. I did not know where one ended and the other began. Sometime later, I woke for real. Dim light, low engine hum, a dull ache behind my eyes. I rolled slightly and stopped. He was there, not touching me, not even close enough to count as close, but asleep on top of the blankets in the chair across from the bed, head angled back slightly, one forearm resting over his stomach. He must have moved there after I fell asleep. I stared at him in the low light and hated what happened next. Without his eyes open, without his voice, without the unbearable control in him, he looked younger. Not soft, never that, but human, tired even, as if whatever machinery held the rest of him together, relaxed only when no one was watching. A thought came sharp and immediate. I hate him. The problem was that the thought did not erase anything underneath it. The boat, the water, the villa, the bed, the way he had refused to take from me the one thing every other man in my life seemed to think could be negotiated. That memory sat in me like a splinter. He had lied to me. He had manipulated me. He had brought me here by force. And still, some traitorous part of me knew he had also protected me in ways that did not fit the story I wanted to tell about him now. I swung my legs off the bed. His eyes opened immediately. Of course they did. He took in the room, then me, in one fast glance. Stay. The sleep in his voice roughened it, made it lower, more dangerous. I stood anyway. He leaned forward, forearms on his thighs. We have a few hours. I'd rather jump. A pause. Then, you don't mean that. I moved past him into the main cabin without answering. By the time we landed in New York, every muscle in my body felt locked. The descent hit harder than commercial flights ever did. Maybe because there were fewer people to absorb the movement. Maybe because my nerves had no skin left on them. The wheels touched down. I was on my feet before the aircraft had fully slowed. He did not stop me. When the cabin door opened, the smell hit me first. Fuel, hot pavement, the dense specific weight of summer air in the Northeast, New York. My entire body recognized it before my mind did. A black car waited on the tarmac, another behind it. The second one larger, darker, the kind of vehicle I had seen outside my childhood home more times than I could count. I went cold all over. He came down the stairs behind me. I didn't look at him. I got into the car because where else was there to go? He got in beside me. We drove. The skyline appeared in the distance and I felt something close around my ribs. I had spent years thinking that putting an ocean between myself and this city would weaken it inside me. It had not. Recognition came in fragments. The angle of light, the shape of bridges, the exact muted ugliness of certain neighborhoods after rain. The city looked the same. That was the insult. By the time we turned into the older, wealthier part of the city, my jaw hurt from holding itself still. The streets widened. Trees appeared. Stone walls. Iron gates. Then I saw where we were going and almost laughed from the violence of it. Not my father's house. Worse. The Castelli estate. Of course. The gates opened before the car stopped. Men were waiting at the entrance. Not many. Enough. We rolled through. I turned to him finally. Why am I here? His eyes met mine. The muscle in his jaw shifted once. You were my girlfriend in Barcelona, he said. Here, you are my fiancé. The words made me physically ill. I am not. The wedding is in a week. I held his gaze. Then I said very quietly, every minute I spend near you, I will make you regret bringing me here. The answer took longer than I expected. When it came, it was lower than his usual voice, almost careful. What happened to the woman I met in Barcelona? I turned to the window. Congratulations, I said. You killed her. The car stopped. A driver opened my door. I stepped out and saw my luggage already arranged on the front steps as if I were expected, as if I belonged here. I turned back before I could stop myself. My phone. He reached into his jacket and placed it in my hand immediately. No argument, no delay. The fact that he had known I would ask for it only made my teeth clench harder. I pocketed it and walked inside. The doors opened onto a wide foyer washed in afternoon light. Staff lined the entry, heads lowered. Then quick footsteps sounded from somewhere deeper in the house. A woman appeared, late 20s, dark hair, posture like steel and silk. Her face lit when she saw him. Leo. The name landed oddly after Barcelona. Not because I hadn't heard it before, because I had. Just never attached to the man who had kissed me like he wanted to memorize my mouth. She stopped when she saw me, looked me over once. Fast, thorough. So, she said, this is the runaway bride. Reuben stepped in before I could answer. My sister, Carolina. I looked at her. She looked back. Hostility recognized hostility instantly. I smiled. Warm, polite, weaponized. I'm Stephanie Gambetta, I said. The woman your brother brought here under a different name. Her eyebrows went up. Oh, I like her, she said to him. Then to me, I'm sure this will be a disaster. It already is, I said. His mouth flattened slightly. Not anger, containment. Good. I wanted him contained. I wanted him managing me the way men like him manage damage. He led me upstairs to a room at the far end of the hall. Large bed, tall windows, elegant furniture chosen by someone who had been told beauty could solve suffocation. He set my suitcase inside. "The room next to mine connects through that door," he said. I laughed in his face. He ignored it. "Get some rest." Then he added, as if discussing weather, "Tomorrow we're looking at dresses." I turned toward him slowly. "I'm not marrying you." He crossed the room in 4 strides. His hand came to my waist. Firm, not rough, final. His other hand lifted to my face, and for one unbearable second my body recognized the gesture before my anger did. "Listen carefully," he said. The softness in his voice was gone now. Not because he was shouting, because he wasn't. The absence of softness was enough. "With you, in Barcelona, I was Reuben. That was not fake." His thumb moved once along my cheekbone. "In this house, I am Leonardo Castelli." The words sat between us. "If you keep pushing me," he said, "you will see more of him." I looked straight back at him. "As far as I can tell, I already have." Something shifted in his eyes then. Not anger, recalculation. He released me, stepped back. "Dinner at 7. I won't be there." "Yes, you will." "Or what?" A pause. Then, "I'll come get you myself." He left. The door closed. And the second it did, my face stopped holding. The tears came hard and fast and humiliatingly hot. I sat on the edge of the bed and let them happen because there was no one here to witness them, and because I was tired in the oldest way, the way that starts in childhood and simply changes shape as you get older. Then I charged my phone, called Maria, heard her answer on the first ring, and for the first time since the airport, I let myself sound like someone who had actually been broken open. That was where part 2 should end. Because by the next morning, I was done crying. And the version of me that came downstairs after that phone call was not the girl who had run from New York. It was the one both my father and Leonardo Castelli were going to regret underestimating.